I remember doing research about it, before I had my daughter. My daughter is 6, but it didn't really hit home for me until I was pregnant with my son. And that's when, I started researching it a little bit more than what I did when I was in high school. I remember, we briefly talked about it in high school, but it wasn't anything that really registered to me, and it didn't really sink in until I became pregnant for the second time with my son. And that's when, the issue was just like, wow, wait a minute, like, what is this and why are we doing this? So that's when it really hit home for me. I found out about how unnecessary it is, and I think the deal breaker for me was knowing how many babies die from this every year and how these deaths are completely preventable. I found it absolutely shocking that people would willingly hand over their babies to be circumcised knowing that there's a risk of death. Any elective surgery is not worth a child's life, ever. Ever. My mother is a CNA. She works at a nursing home. However, she is going to school, for nursing. And I remember helping her with her homework one night and looking through her medical books and seeing, figures of, the male anatomy, and they were all circumcised penises. And knowing that men are not born this way, but yet this is what our medical community is taught. That's what really kind of made it all or nothing for me. Like at that point, I wasn't, 1 foot in the door, 1 foot out the door. I was completely in. Yes. Knowing that, we have a medical community that's not only dishonest, but yet teaching people that, boys are, some people think that boys are born circumcised, and they're not. There's just an overwhelming amount of ignorance, not always willful ignorance, but, we have to break that. We need to break that cycle. Well, I had always been a fan of Dr. Mama. So, with my daughter, I went there for a lot of parenting advice, and then I stumbled upon, the whole circumcision issue on Dr. Mama, and that was enough fuel for my fire to take it and run with it. I've had a couple friends that have had baby boys who, thankfully I was able to help them make the decision to keep their son intact, because we didn't know. They didn't know, and if I hadn't said anything, their boys may have been circumcised. So for me, talking to them, the main question I asked them is it worth your child's life? Knowing that that risk is there. Was you, knowing that the procedure is cosmetic, it's elective, you don't have to do this, knowing that there's nothing wrong with the way he was born, the way God intended him to be. There's nothing wrong with him. All babies are born perfect. If boys were meant to have a foreskin, they'd be born with them. I felt really empowered, the looks that I was getting, I know people don't quite understand, but their faces tell me that, I planted a seed. They're thinking, why is she doing this? And some people are going to be interested enough to go research it, and they'll figure it out why soon enough. It hasn't been as hostile as I thought it was going to be, so I'm very grateful for that people are being open and receptive, in such a place as we are, at the Capitol building. I wasn't expecting people to be as receptive as they have been, so that's good. I would just encourage people to really look into the issue. It's more than just having the choice. It's more than, the parents having the right to choose. This goes beyond parental choice. This goes beyond, what, doctors say or feel. Babies are not data. Babies are not turkeys. They're human beings. And just because they can't walk and they can't talk and they can't tell you what they're feeling doesn't mean that they don't feel it. So I would just encourage people to research it to the fullest extent. Don't leave any stone unturned. Because once you do, there's always that chance that, you could have made your decision based off of something that, you would regret later on. And I wouldn't want to be that parent, which is why I looked into it heavily with my son. And after knowing what I know now, I could never willingly hand him over to be hurt for no reason. Ever. Ever.